Okay, now moving on to the second high chakra, we're going to talk about the third eye, the Ajna chakra. So this chakra is located inside of our head, behind the space between the eyebrows. It's also related to a very important gland, the pineal gland, and also the last chakra to have a mantra, which is the primordial sound of the universe, the Om. Is the mantra and the sound that contains all the sounds of the universe. That's how subtle the frequency of this chakra is. It's almost the transcendental aspect of a human being on this dimension, let's say like that. So when we connect with the full expression of this frequency, with the embodiment of the third eye, we start to understand beyond our linear thinking, beyond our mind, and we start to see literally beyond our physical eyes. So what does that mean? That we start to engage in a different realm and a different spectrum from the lenses of perception from which we're seeing the reality. So in some traditional scriptures in yoga, like the Yoga Sutras, it's explained that we start to develop the siddhis, that we call that the psychic powers like clairvoyance and clairaudience, and also become very attuned to understand the language of the pranic body. So we can read, in quotes, the energy and the energy is saying about us, and also the energy around us, because there are no barriers between my energy and any of the spectrum of reality of other person's energy, or the energy of the trees, of the plants, of everything around me. So I start to connect beyond body and mind, beyond space and time already. So that's why we call that this is the higher understanding and the higher level mind. So some authors of chakras talk about that to refer to the third eye. So when this chakra is in balance, we're able to connect with a higher intuition. So remember, the portal to feel the first sparkle of intuition of the inner voice is in the heart, because this is like the antenna of our being. Remember, this is the way that we enter to feel this highest electromagnetic field around from the heart. But to translate that information, that happens to the third eye. It's the translator, let's say. So the sparkle of intuition starts from the heart, but it's translated to be understood by the higher mind, by the wisdom, by the third eye. So when this chakra is not balanced, we can develop different patterns, which are also not good, as we have realized. So when this chakra is in deficiency, we might start to feel confused in our thoughts, confused in our mind, have this kind of fogginess in our mind, this kind of lack of clarity on our thoughts, lack of presence on how to act in respect of what we're thinking, and also this lack of connection between the mind and the action. And at the same time, not only is about the fogginess on the mind, but about the narrowness of our mind. We become narrow-minded because we cannot see and understand reality from a higher spectrum of it, from a higher vision, from a higher lenses of perception, for a more clear senses of perception. So we are very focused on our previous conditioning, which are not allowing us to see reality as it is. So we tend to be very focused on the material things, on our limiting beliefs, on our previous conditioning, and we're not able to overcome all that stuff to see clearly how reality it is and how is the nature of consciousness. In the other way, when this energy is in excess, it's also not good, because we have the tendency to have nightmares, because also the pineal gland is correlated with the biological clock of the dream, and how we dream and how we connect with our dreams and the unconscious mind. And also we have the tendency to be like spaced out. We cannot tell what is real from what is not real. We have the tendency to have hallucinations, paranoia, even dementia. So as you see, it's not so good. So it's about bringing this energy, which is very, very subtle, in a complete activation, body in balance. And also when we are prepared, we cannot pretend to make use of this energy without the lower chakras being in balance, because then we can have the tendency to be spaced out and have this energy in excess, because the dense vibration of our panic body, the lower chakras are not prepared to receive this information, prepared to receive the embodiment of the frequency of the third eye. So everything, we have to be humble. We have to start from the lower chakras, our journey, our inner journey, to start to develop a higher frequency, a more subtle frequency, to receive this understanding, to connect with the wisdom, to translate our inner voice and to make sense on how to use this precious information that goes beyond our previous condition and beyond our linear thinking. So we start to overcome the linear thinking in the third eye when we correctly attune to the frequency of the ajna. But if we are not really in balance, we have problems and around the use of our memory, of our vision. Even some people that have any kind of tendency of excessive or deficiency in this chakra also have problems in their eyes, not because really they cannot see well, because there is not anything wrong in the physicality of the functions of the eye. It's about having this kind of blur sensation when they see reality. And that is coming also from the deficiency or excess in the energy of the ajna. So that's how important it is. And also we can develop a lot of migraines and headaches if this chakra is not okay. So these are signs also to tell us that maybe the energy is too heavy and we are always living from the mental body, and we are not realizing that there is a physical body, an emotional body that needs to come also into place, working like a complete synergy way so we can live our lives in balance and harmony. So what about if I feel that I have any kind of patterns from the excess or deficiency of the ajna on the third eye? We can start to, of course, join more and attune to the Jnana Yoga, to the meditation. So that's very helpful for us to clarify the mind, to educate the mind in the first place, to start to educate the mind to how to concentrate first, and then beyond that to start to be one-pointed. And at some point, to defocus the mind so much that we can transcend the mind itself and realize that we are the awareness of the mind, because the mind is not self-aware. The consciousness is self-aware. So that's the kind of things that we realize when we connect with the third eye and we connect with what we are. We are self-aware already. We are aware that we are aware, you see? So that is what we realize when we connect with the ajna, and that is beautiful. So for that, the best recipe for the third eye is meditation and self-inquiry. So spend time with yourself. Know who you are. It's about I am that, so am. So just know yourself and just be excited about knowing yourself, because you are going to be with you forever. You are the only person that you cannot abandon. So it's better to know ourselves. And that is the message of the third eye. It's about self-knowledge, self-inquiry, and meditation.
Our last class about Anandamaya Kosha. So Anandamaya Kosha is the body that we call the body of joy, or the bliss body. So we have this body because we are meant as human beings to experience experiences of bliss and joy. So the awareness of this body, we become aware of this body when we do have these kind of experiences. And it can be as random as, getting lost in a meditation where you feel really united in one with everything there is, or feeling that moment of pure joy, pure happiness, just being super content with yourself and very present. It can be a moment where you're doing a workshop, a dance workshop, and you get lost in the movement and you feel so aligned with yourself and everything there is. So these are these kind of experiences that everyone has access to. Yes, it's a very, as it says in your as it says in your book, the awareness of Anandamaya Kosha occupies only 1% of your consciousness, which means that it's very deep within, and not a lot of people are aware of it. Most of us are not aware that we have access to these experiences, that actually the path of yoga is meant to lead us to these experiences. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this kind of kosha, right? But it's also that state of higher consciousness, that state of union, that state what we're looking for when we are on a yogic path. We can also connect it with the higher chakra, Sahasrara chakra, the spiritual self. So Osho says, I'm going to quote Osho because his statement on this kosha is very beautiful. He says, it is made of a pure bliss. Even intuition is transcended. These 5 seeds are just seeds, remember. So the seeds are the koshas, right? Beyond these 5 is your reality. They're just seeds surrounding you. The first is very gross. You're almost confined in a 6-foot body. The second is bigger than it. The third is still bigger. The fourth, even bigger. And the fifth is very big. But still, these are seeds. All are limited. If all the seeds are dropped and you stand nude in your reality, then you are infinite. That is what yoga says. Aham Brahmasmi. I am godly. Yeah, that's the goal of yoga. This is something that we also study in Bhakti Yoga. So if you want to know more about this aspect of the goal of yoga, I invite you to watch the Bhakti Yoga videos. But this is truly the goal of yoga, is to become one with universal consciousness, to become united with this higher perspective of us. And he says, you are the very Brahman. Brahman means universal consciousness. Now you are ultimate reality itself. Now all barriers are dropped. Try to understand this. The barriers are there surrounding you in circles. The first barrier is very, very hard. To get out of it is very difficult. People remain confined to their physical bodies and think their physical life is all that there is to life. But don't settle. The physical body is just a step to the energy body. The energy body is just, again, a step to the mind body, which again is just a step for the intuitive body. And that too is a step for the bliss body. And from the bliss body, you take the jump, and now there are no more steps. You take the jump into the abyss of your being, that is infinity, eternity. So the state of bliss is not something that we can always hold permanently unless we are Buddha or Jesus or one of those masters, But it's something that we can cultivate, and definitely this is part of the yogic path. This is kind of the state that we want to go to. What we can call also enlightenment, in other words. So that is all about Anandamaya Kosha, and I hope you enjoyed this workshop about the koshas, and see you for the next one. Thank you. So let's start with the first one, which is called Annamaya Kosha. So let's start talking about Annamaya Kosha, the first body, the first layer, which is the physical body. So the physical body is also called the body of matter or the food body. And we can perceive the physical body through our senses, through our 5 main senses, So that's how we perceive it. That's how we know that our physical body is active, through the sense of touch, through the sense of taste, through the sense of hearing, of seeing, and so on. So that's how we know the physical body is a real experience, right? And the physical body is also called the food body because you obviously need food and water to survive. We need food and water to live. If we stop eating food at some point, or we stop drinking water at some point, we die. So that's why it's also called the food body. But here comes the interesting perspective brought by Osho, is that if you stop taking food, what happens? Your Annamaya Kosha will wither away. It will wither away. And so I'm going to quote him here, one has to be very alert to what one is eating, because that makes you, and it will affect you in millions of ways. Sooner or later, your food is not just food. It becomes your blood, your bones, your very marrow. It circulates in your being and goes on affecting you. So the purity of the food creates a pure Annamaya Kosha, the pure food body. So what he's basically saying is, you may have heard this say before, this expression before, which is, you are what you eat. We are what we eat, right? So, but we never really understand this say. And when I read Osho, I was like, oh, now it makes sense. Now it makes sense because now I can understand that whatever I put into my body, my temple, will of course affect not only my physical body, but it will affect all of the layers. Because what he's basically saying is that if your food is not pure, and that counts also for anything else that you put in your body, may be the movies that you watch, the information, the news that you watch, the books that you read, the people you interact with, anything that you put in, any energy that you put into your body will affect Namaya Kosha and the other koshas for sure. Because what he's saying, and he's asking this question, like, have you noticed? Have you noticed when you have eaten too much and heavy foods? That's my question to you now. What happens? What happens when we eat heavy, dense food that is processed, that is really not healthy? Of course, we're not going to feel good. We're not going to feel our best, and we're going to feel loaded. And that's what he's saying. Immediately, you start feeling a sort of sleep, a sort of lethargic, and you just would like to go to sleep. But what else happens is that awareness immediately starts disappearing. So when the first body is loaded, it is difficult to create great awareness. So the intention behind everything that we do in yoga, so we don't do just asanas, but the yogic path is a holistic path. It touches every aspect of life. And so when we start this yogic journey, we want to tend towards the sattvic state. I'm going to talk about the sattvic state in a separate video, but the sattvic state, just to explain it very quickly, is that state of harmony, that highest level of harmony of prana. When in terms of food, sattvic food is food that has the highest level of prana, for example. So it's that state of balance, of harmony, where we are connected to the true self. And so once we understand this, okay, Annamaya Kosha is a physical body, but it's also a tool for ascension. It's also a tool that brings me into the second kosha, which is Pranamaya Kosha, which is the energy body. It's a tool for tapping into more subtle aspects of life, tapping into a higher expression of myself, tapping into more awareness, tapping into a higher level of consciousness. So when we start working with this kosha, we start to also act from a space of self-love into feeding this body with the right fuel, that serves the yogic path, that serves the sattvic state, that serves this process of stepping into a higher perspective, into a higher level or state of consciousness. So that's also what Osho emphasizes in his book, is that we need to understand, we need to start becoming more aware of what we're doing, especially on a yogic path. Sometimes it's not always easy, and sometimes we're going to indulge on food, and we're going to be also probably enjoying it, and it's probably also healthy for our soul, for it can also be considered as an act of self-love, but we should be careful on a day-to-day basis to serve this higher path, to serve this higher path, and to understand that we are what we eat. And so that the food that comes into Annamaya Kosha needs to respond also to the specific needs of Annamaya Kosha, but also this path we're on. So I hope this helps you to understand a bit more this first kosha, and see you for the welcome back. We're going to talk now about Manomaya Kosha. So Manomaya Kosha is the emotional and the mental body. And we can be aware of this body through emotions, through thoughts, through feelings, right? So this is how we can access, or how we can be aware of Manomaya Kosha. And Manomaya Kosha actually comes from the Sanskrit word man, which means the mind. So, and even the English word man comes from the Sanskrit word man. So it means that what makes us human, what makes us men, what makes us human is the mind. So that through the mind, because we have a mind, because we think, because we have a certain level of intelligence. We are humans. Yeah, this is what makes us human. And that's the definition of Manomaya Kosha. So, but the important thing here, when we start working with the koshas, when we start becoming these masters of the subtle bodies, masters of energy, and not just working with the physical body, is that we have to start thinking on our own terms. We have to start freeing the mind, because the mind has been conditioned from a very young age. Yeah, since we were born, we've been educated by our family, we've been to school, we've been to college eventually, we are exposed to society, we are influenced by all these external circumstances and way of thinking and belief systems. So when we start working on, or when we embrace the yogic path, and when we start tapping into Manomaya Kosha, it is important for us to become free, to liberate ourselves from the conditioning, from the limited mind, from the limited ego, from the one that has false beliefs. By the false ego, we can call it the false self, the false self, because it's still an illusion. Everything that gravitates around us, which is not our highest truth, which is not our deepest truth, is an illusion. Yeah, that's why all these koshas end with Maya. Maya means illusion. So it's a perspective. It's like the window to that illusion, but it's for us to break through that window and to tap into our deepest truth, our inner truth. So Osho says about this that it is the mind that makes you man. And what he means by that, human, of course. But more or less, you don't have it. What you have in its place is just a conditioned mind, a conditioned mechanism. You live by limitation, then it means you don't have a mind. When you start living on your own, when you start answering your life's problems on your own, when you become responsible, you start growing in Manomaya Kosha. Then the mind-body grows. Yeah, so it's all about becoming critical, not only critical, but also self-critical. It's all about taking a step ahead and taking that higher perspective and seeing life as the illusion that it is, to enter the space of the true self. So that was it for Manomaya Kosha, and I see you for the next one. So we're going to talk now about Pranamaya Kosha, the second kosha, which is the energy body. So the energy body, you can be aware of the energy body through your breath and through energy. Everything is energy, as we know, so we also have an energy body, and through this energy body, we can feel and we can sense things. So it's all about being aware of the breath and the energy. We also call it the vital body or the electric body. Osho calls this body the electric body. So what he says about this body is very interesting. He says the second body is more subtle than the first, and people who start moving from the first body to the second body become fields of energy, tremendously attractive, magnetic, hypnotic. If you go near them, you will feel vitalized and charged. But if you go near man who lives only in his food body, you will be depleted. He will suck you. Many times you come across people and you feel that they suck you. After they have left, you feel depleted, dissipated, as if somebody has exploited your energy. And this is something you might have experienced in your life, is that you come across someone who, after talking maybe 10 minutes or 1 hour with this person, you feel very, very, very tired. Yeah, that's because some people are tapped into their pranamaya kosha and some people don't. They live solely in their food body. So if they're not tapped in, they need other people or other sources of energy. So that is what he's explaining here. The first body is a sucker, so that's a bit of an extreme statement, and the first body is very gross. So if you live too much with first body oriented people, you will always feel burdened, tense, bored, sleepy, with no energy, always at the point of the lowest rung of your energy. You will not have any amount of energy which can be used for higher growth. So the Annamaya Kosh-oriented people live for food. They eat and eat and eat, and that is their whole life. They remain, in a way, childish. Yeah, so this is when people are just, if we're just tapped into the food body, we're just focused on eating, but not only, but we also think that our physical life, our physical reality is all there is, and that's the only thing there is. Whereas when we are starting to work with pranamaya kosha, when we're starting to tap into our energy field, we start accessing more awareness. Yeah, this is the state of awareness. This is a state where we go beyond the physical. This is a more subtle state. So the second body, pranamaya kosha, gives you a new freedom. It gives you more space. That's what Osho says. The second body is bigger than the first body. It is not confined to your physical body. It is inside the physical body, and it's also outside the physical body. And it surrounds you like a subtle climate, an aura of energy. Yeah, some people speak about the aura, and that's what it is. That's pranamaya kosha. It's actually inside the physical body, and it also surrounds you. It's that energy field that surrounds you. So how to really activate pranamaya kosha? So very simple. That's what we do all the time when we practice yoga or when we practice even pranayama, breath work. Yeah, as long as you breathe, you can activate your pranamaya kosha. So Osho gives a very simple example here, which I find very pragmatic, very interesting and practical, is that he recommends to breathe through the belly. So that's exactly what we're doing in yoga. We're actually doing the full yogic breathing, but it starts from the abdominal breathing. So we start breathing from the belly and up to the chest. Yeah, so it's not an emergency breathing where we're just breathing in the chest or in the throat, like many people do. It's actually a full breathing. Like he says, like newborn babies, that's what they do. They breathe through the belly. And it's very natural for them. It's very soothing and calming for them. So that's what we do when we activate pranamaya kosha, is that we do this full breath, and that's how we start to tap into our energy body. Yeah, and that's how we can have a healthy energy body. And it starts also with a healthy annamaya kosha, because as we have seen before for this kosha, is that we need to have a pure annamaya kosha in order to enter the second body, and then in order to have greater awareness. So that is for pranamaya kosha, and let's go now to the third one.
Dedicated to the koshas, also called the pranic body. So last time when we were speaking about Ayurveda, we spoke about the holistic approach of Ayurveda and how we see the body, we acknowledge that the body is not just physical, that it has other layers. And so today we're going to study these layers to understand how these layers work with each other and how we can even improve our physical, our mental, our emotional, even our spiritual well-being through working with the koshas. So there are actually 5 koshas, and they form what we call the pranic body. Why? Because yes, the body is not just physical, it is also pranic. It also holds energy. It is also consciousness. So that's why the koshas are also called the pranic body, to understand that it's not just a physical body, right? And today, so in your book, you have, of course, a chapter dedicated to the koshas, but today I'm going to bring in also another perspective, which is Osho's perspective. You may have heard of Osho before. And so he has written a book that is called Yoga, the Path to Liberation. And this book is really a pure gem. You can read it. It's a very easy read. And what I really like about Osho, because he has written many books on the science of yoga, on meditation, on the philosophy, what I really enjoy with Osho is that he explains sometimes very complex concepts in a very easy, understandable, practical way. So that's what we're looking for today in this workshop, for you to understand the koshas in a practical way and how to use them to your own benefit on your yogic journey.